Hey, what's up, guys? Boodchains, Bradley Morden, welcoming you to the first episode of Boodchains Talks. It is currently 12:01 a.m., New Year's Day 2021. So I'd like to say Happy New Year's to anybody listening, and that I hope you all had a great holiday season. So for the first episode of my podcast, Boodchains Talks, I'm going to be talking about who I am, why I'm starting a podcast, what I'll talk about on the podcast, and maybe some goals. So first off, who I am, right? So name's Bradley Morden. You've probably heard of me if you're listening to this. I'm a retired SoundCloud rapper looking for a new way to kind of put myself out there. It's something I've done all throughout high school. Currently my fourth year of high school. I'm a senior at Vincent Massey. I'm just looking for something new to do. So why not start a podcast, right? So that brings us into our second point, right? Why I'm starting the podcast. Mainly, it's just something to do to keep me occupied. It's a fun hobby. Another big reason is it's just an excuse to talk to people that maybe I haven't talked to in a while, and it's a good way to catch up with them. Another thing, it's a good way to learn about some things maybe I haven't learned about them with my friends. You know, talking to somebody for maybe up to an hour or hour and a half, cutting it down. You're really able to learn a lot about people in those times when it's just one-on-one, or maybe in the future we can do some episodes with 3 or 4 people. Not really sure where I want this to be headed, but I think that's something that will just develop over time. Another reason I'm starting it is because I've thought about it for a long time. I've wanted to do a podcast since, grade 10? I thought about making a student council podcast where we'd have people on student council interview teachers. And the reason I had that idea was actually Mr. Pito. I was talking with Mr. Pito, our vice principal at Vincent Massey. He said something really ridiculously funny, I thought, and I said, man, I'd love to interview this guy and put it out on the internet. And so ever since grade 10, I've kind of had this idea of having a podcast and having interesting people around me, be able to just talk to them for a while. So just being able to actually just say screw it, I'm going to start now. Taking that first step is going to be huge, right? So a lot of you might be wondering, what is your podcast going to be like? Right now, my vision for it right now, I think I want it to be a variety podcast where the topic can change every week, similar to the Joe Rogan podcast, where you just have a guest on. Whatever you guys talk about is what goes on the podcast. So some guests, depending on our interests that are mutual between us, or their interests or whatever, there could be talks of art, business, maybe fashion and shoes, tech, cars, really anything that people want to talk about with me, that's going on the podcast, because I don't really care. It's not like I have to fit to a certain topic or certain style. Hop on a podcast with some friends and just talk about what's going on in their life, maybe my life, current news, current trends, all sorts of different stuff. The goals for the podcast, to be able to make an episode a week or for a month. So the reason I say for a month or one a week is, if I don't get one out a week, then I want to be able to have the goal of 4 a month, so I can maybe, if I have to, hopefully it doesn't come to this, but cram maybe 2 in the last week, or just something along those lines, just to try to stay consistent with the podcast and just make sure it's something that's going to go on for a long time. And I read somewhere that most podcasts don't make it past 10 weeks or 10 episodes or something along those lines. So I really just want to, push past that and then just keep this going for a long time. I have some ideas of who some guests could be in my head. I have a list on OneNote too. And right now, I'm really excited to see where this podcast goes. Really just using the podcast as a tool to grow closer with people, given that COVID has brought us so far apart. Being able to just have some more human contact from a distance that I wouldn't normally. Obviously, it's not safe to bring my mic and a laptop over to somebody's house or have them come to my house to record. So I think the first episodes with guests are going to be recorded over Discord. Maybe we just see where this goes, and I'd love to have anybody who's made it this far Stick with me until episode 52. Next New Year's, I'll be making a new episode. And I just want to have you guys come along with the journey with me. So, I'd like to thank everybody for listening. This was the first episode of Boodchains Talks. Thank you so much.